What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on? How are we doing? Hopefully everyone's having a beautiful day, enjoying life. First day without football in what feels like a long time. Tuesday, I'm recording this. Can take a deep breath as we head in to week 2 of the NFL season. Thursday night game is excellent. Commanders, Packers. So I'm fired up for that one. Little Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels, Micah Parsons. So buckle up. That's a really good Thursday night game. But I've been thinking a lot about coaches and quarterbacks, and I want to start with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. So we'll dive into that situation, which is ever evolving and could get really weird really fast. It also got me thinking about the relationship between those two men, not specifically Ben and Caleb, but in the NFL. They're your two most important employees if you're own a team, right? Who's your coach? Who's your quarterback? And spent a lot of time thinking about it and want to touch on that, as well as the 49ers, who typically I don't talk about cutting a kicker, but I did learn a lesson and something I supported, and I will pivot moving forward, as well as discussing their injury situation, which I don't know. They have some of the best doctors in America at Stanford right up the road, and somehow the 49ers get injured unlike anything you'll ever see. But before we dive into some football, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, GameTime. And here's the thing with GameTime. Best ticketing app in America. I've used them all. There is not a ticketing app I haven't used, and this one blows them out of the water. What do you want to do? You want to go to a football game? You want to go to an NFL game? You want to go to a college football game? Do you want to go to a concert? Concerts all around us. You want to get out of the house on a Thursday night, on a Friday night, on a Saturday night, let your hair down, enjoy yourself, get down and boogie? Well, do that with my friends at GameTime because they're the best in the business. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code JOHN. That's John, J-O-H-N, $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account, J-O-H-N, save $20. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. I think what made, I was thinking about it this morning, that game so fascinating, is typically, like going into a game, you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to get. And that game, like the Vikings have been really good 2 of the last 3 years. They have a ton of established players. They have an established coach, a stud defensive coordinator. But we had no clue what it was going to look like because of the quarterback. And the first half wasn't that shocking. First ever NFL game on the road, completely overwhelmed. And then he completely flips the script. And we're like, God, he might actually be a high-end player. What if he goes on to be a franchise quarterback for them? The Bears, while we had seen Caleb Williams play, we're like, well, he's got to be better. He's got Ben Johnson. They've done a good job with the offensive line. He should be improved. But we didn't know. So we went in that game. Like, we went into Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson Sunday night. We didn't go in blind. We knew what we were getting. That was better than we thought. But, like, that's par for the course. Like, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are going to continue to rack up MVPs. I would be stunned if one of those two guys doesn't win the MVP this year. Yeah, I got a little cash on Baker. Do think Joe Burrow, he started slow last year as well. I think he will be heard from. But you watch those two guys, you're like, if they're healthy, that's as good as it gets. Those are the best 2 players right now in the NFL. Doesn't mean they will win. I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes ever again in a big game. But those 2 guys, best 2 players in the league. Obviously, Herbert, Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. Like, we've seen these guys play for a long, long time. Now, we can nitpick them, but we had no clue what we were getting. And when you look at Ben Johnson and you look at Caleb Williams, I think this is why you hire an offensive coach. Because if I was a betting man right now, I would say this is not going to work. I don't think Caleb is good. We have, through 18 games, he plays like most coaches don't want you to play. Not on time, inaccurate, hard to just run your offense because there's no rhythm to his game. He's a freelance player, which is great when shit hits the fan, but just freelancing on a basic play can screw everything up. And Ben Johnson's offense is timing related. He needs everything to be, when he tells you get rid of the ball on your second step or on your third step, it has to be out of there. It has to be on the guy.
He's not just making that up. That's the way he has constructed this bad boy and how he got this job based on the success he had doing that exact same thing. But this is why the Bears hired Ben Johnson, because there's no guarantee that this is going to work. And more than likely, based on the history of the league, and when you look at the other quarterbacks in his draft class and the percentage chances that someone's got to whiff, you would put money on Caleb Williams not working out. And we know at the pace in which things operate now, you don't get 4 or 5 years. Those days are done. Based on recent history, you get about 2. And this is year 2 for Caleb. So if they keep losing these games, and they just lost a game at home to a quarterback who had never played an NFL snap in the regular season in pretty devastating fashion, how am I going to bet on them to win a lot of games? I remember being on Colin's show in Los Angeles, and we did this thing like everyone thinks the Bears are going to be a lot better. And we went through the schedule optimistically, and it was hard to get to 9-8. Now, after watching that last night, like, yeah, 6-7 wins. That's what I feel like. If that's going to be your quarterback. And let's face it, like, he's going to try to impress the coach. The coach is going to be down on him. It's going to be a weird situation. But don't be scared, Bears fans, because you have a guy. The reason you paid this guy 4 or 5 years, $13 million a year, is he can fix that problem. Look at the Vikings, for example. Kevin O'Connell has proven he can work with Kirk Cousins, an established veteran guy. And then once Cousins tore his Achilles, he said, see you later. And what did he do? He signed Sam Darnold for $10 million and drafted the 5th quarterback off the board. The 5th quarterback. Now, he was drafted in the top 15, but J.J. McCarthy was the 5th quarterback off the board in his own draft class. And Sam Darnold went on to throw 35 touchdowns, which matches a guy who has made over $300 million, Kirk Cousins, career high. So Kevin O'Connell, when you're like, what are we going to do? How are we going to let Kirk Cousins walk? Well, I'll tell you. That's why you pay me the money. Because you could argue, unless I have Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, most of these quarterbacks, like the difference between Dak Prescott, the difference between Kirk Cousins, the difference between Brock Purdy, the difference between a lot of these guys is very, very small. If you're not in that truly upper echelon, it's kind of a coin flip and really comes down to the coaching. So when you see Kevin O'Connell, what is his value to the organization? He could win 14 games and have a guy throw 35 touchdowns that everyone universally thought sucked. And then he could take J.J. McCarthy, who, listen, I was on the fence about. I didn't think it was going to translate because of the offense he played in. And by the end of his first game, accounting for 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And me thinking like, God, no wonder they put a captaincy on this guy's chest. No wonder that Kevin O'Connell had him break down the locker room at the end of that game and everyone gravitated toward him. Like, he sees something in these players. That is his special sauce. Obviously, being a leader, assembling a staff, running a team is very difficult. But the advantage you have when you have an offensive coach who's a quote-unquote quarterback guru, and to me, a quarterback guru isn't just designing plays. It's being able to take several different guys of different shapes and sizes and win games. Andy Reid was known as this quarterback savant before he ever got to Kansas City. Because you know why? He won with so many different quarterbacks in Philadelphia. Mobile ones, guys who weren't mobile, guys with big arms, guys who didn't have big arms. He won with them all. And then look at Kansas City. Won a ton of games with Alex Smith, a guy with an average at best arm, to go to Patrick Mahomes, who has elite physical attributes. So to me, Ben Johnson, part of hiring him is, worst case scenario, Caleb Williams is a bust, which is a tough word to say when you draft a guy number 1 overall, but it's happened before and it will happen again. But the reason we feel we're okay if this doesn't work out, which we never would have been with Matt Eberflus, because he had no clue what he was doing. This guy at least, now he'd have to prove it and get it done, but I've seen him resurrect a guy's career. What we talk about and the way that Jared Goff is perceived in 2025 was not the case 3 or 4 years ago. Was not the case when Ben Johnson started calling plays for Dan Campbell. Jared Goff was viewed at like, got overpaid, had a little bit of success with Sean McVay, but that was an outlier situation. That's not going to be over the course of his career, especially going to Detroit. And then Ben Johnson, they build around him, and he starts going to Pro Bowls and winning a ton of games. So if I'm a Bears fan right now, this season could suck. And there's a pretty good chance this season's going to be extremely underwhelming. And by the end of it, Caleb Williams will be viewed as like, he's not our franchise quarterback. But that's why you hired Ben Johnson, to figure it out. So if we got a draft guy in the second or third round next year, if we got to see what Tyson Badgett, I can't even say his fucking name, has in the tank, clearly Ben Johnson can say his name and really likes him. But I would feel like, hey, this could be rocky. It's going to be rocky, but you have a coach that everyone else wanted because of his ability to coach that position and coach the offense. We are extremely excited to announce our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Everyone knows and loves their hotels and casinos, but now you can use the top-rated Hard Rock Bet sportsbook to place all your NFL bets this season. Hard Rock Bet is the only legal sportsbook in the state of Florida and is also available in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado, with more states to come. You can also play on Hard Rock Bet's online casino if you are in New Jersey. As we gear up for the NFL season, sign up for Hard Rock Bet and make a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Head over to Hard Rock Bet, sign up, and make your first deposit today. And speaking of coaches and quarterbacks, having been married now for 6 months and having a child on the way, the biggest difference, and for those of you that are listening that are young and single, it's a great time in your life, and especially if you're professionally ambitious, take advantage of it, because time, not only is on your side, but you don't have other requirements and other people depending on you. When you get married, when you get into a serious relationship, and obviously whenever this child pops out of her, my life is going to be dramatically different in terms of people depending on me, which is a good thing, which I enjoy. It's part of my life that felt empty for a long period of time. But when you get into a serious relationship, when you get married, when you live together, when your finances are under one umbrella, everyone's stresses are each other's stresses. When I was in my 20s or in my early 30s, the only thing I ever had to worry about were my problems and maybe my immediate family's problems, like, my mom or dad. But I didn't have anyone else an issue with. And then you find someone that you're willing to go if she has financial issues, if she has personal issues, if she's having issues with her job, whatever it may be. And listen, a lot of you listening right now that are married knows, whatever her problems may be, big or small, they become your problems. And that only, I'm sure, gets amplified to the nth degree with a child. I mean, I think back when I was a little kid, what a pain in the bleeping you-know-what I would have been for my own parents. I was not an easy kid to raise, but I was their problem. And they were loyal to me because I was their child. And I was thinking about, Ben Johnson did not pick Caleb Williams. When you juxtapose that with Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy, that's his guy. So there's a loyalty and a relationship there that can't really be faked. You can create a relationship when I inherited you as a quarterback, but it's not the same organic relationship of I drafted this guy. The power in Mahomes and Andy Reid, obviously this is a league that is defined by wins and losses and whether you play well or you don't play well. And when you play well, it's easy to get behind a guy. But there was a relationship with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and the Chiefs organization because it started on the ground floor. He became a Chief before anyone really knew who he was. I love football. I love college football. I'd be lying to you if I knew that much about Patrick Mahomes before he began starting for the Kansas City Chiefs his second year. Obviously, with some of these quarterbacks, Tua, Caleb, Joe Burrow, we know a lot more about them because they play for prominent programs and we watch them play a lot. Most people are not banging out 7-6 Texas Tech teams. I know I was not. But there was a relationship and a power and just a willingness. If it hadn't gone as well, we're going to live through it because we believed in you. We traded up for you. We used a high pick on you. You mean something to us. And that's, to me, the relationship when you get married, when you have children, that with your parents. You don't have that relationship with any other human being. It's impossible to have. And when I look around the league, part of the reason Sean Payton, and we're going to find out if he's right or wrong, but his loyalty, his belief in this player, it's you can't talk him off that ledge, at least not for a long time. That relationship that just took a huge step with Kevin O'Connell and J.J. McCarthy, the power of that last 15 minutes in that fourth quarter is something that they are going to build on. It's going to make it even stronger. But I was thinking about like Mike Vrabel. I'm sure he was very intrigued by Drake May. He thinks the guy's height, weight, speed, his physical attributes. But if Drake May plays bad, Mike Vrabel did not draft that player. So the loyalty for guys like Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson, if it starts to fray, if it starts going in the wrong direction, they will jump ship. Like they are not going down with that guy by their side. I promise you that. Andy Reid at this point in time would go down in flames next to Patrick Mahomes. Look at what they're doing with Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, I think we got to be real, is somewhat a shell of himself. And I'm not being a negative or some hater. This is just evaluating him as a football player. Obviously, from a personal brand standpoint, he's never made more money. He's never been bigger. But from a on the field standpoint, he's never been a worse player. But there's a loyalty that Veach, that the Hunt family, and Andy have to him because they've been with him from the jump. And so you look around the league like, I think Lamar Jackson would have been a pretty good player no matter where he went. Obviously, he benefited from going to the Ravens, but like he saved John Harbaugh's job. John Harbaugh, if Lamar hadn't come in and played well and taken that team to the playoffs, like was on the hot seat. People forget that and changed the course of his career. And obviously, they've gone on to have an insane amount of success. Sean McDermott was known as a good defensive coordinator in Carolina. Josh Allen made him a $12, $15 million a year head coach and a guy who goes to the playoffs every single year. Now, this is what I'm saying about like those guys are winning, that grows their relationship. But those were the coaches. They were there when the guy was drafted. So as you build a relationship, whether it be with your wife, whether it be with a quarterback, from the beginning, the moment that player walks in the organization, you're the one talking to him, greeting him, and coaching him. That you can't fake that. I mean, listen, Bill's a weird guy, but the power of him and Brady's relationship for almost 20 years before it started to break apart was pretty powerful. I mean, there's no really disputing it. Hell, go back to Pete Carroll with Russell Wilson. Remember, one of the issues all those defensive guys had, like Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, was like he got such special treatment. Well, it's like, yeah, he's more important in a weird way if he's playing at a high level than you guys. Even if you guys are historic defense, there is no one more important if your quarterback is good. And when I draft you and you change the course of my career, right? There's a loyalty that is really, really strong. Now, Russell's a good example of like he actually, I would say, helped ruin that relationship. Head got big, wouldn't listen to anybody, was a finger pointer. But there was a period for 7, 8, 9 years where the GM, the head coach, just stood by his side extremely, extremely close. And I think it's going to be fascinating moving forward with some of these quarterbacks. You watch how fast they'll get kicked to the curb. You watch how fast that, like, if Ben Johnson doesn't believe that Caleb Williams is good in a couple months, because he's not going to get cut or benched this month, right? But if you go 10 games and the team is 4-6 or 3-7, and the offense just week in, week out is just not good, he's not going to blame himself because he goes, I know what I do works. I'm going to blame you. Like Mike Vrabel goes, I know when I just have a capable quarterback, Ryan Tannehill, my shit works. Now, maybe Drake May with the ownership gets a little bit more time, but I think the clock is ticking on these quarterbacks now to get it done really, really fast. And the difference, like for Carolina, for example, no one's really paying attention. So if Carolina's god-awful again, they could float a little bit under the radar. And if you tell me that Bryce Young gets 4 years, I would believe you. But everyone's paying attention to the Bears. Everyone's paying attention to Vrabel and the Patriots. So when it doesn't go well, and you're in year 2, we have seen this with Anthony Richardson. He didn't make it to year 3 as a starter. Trey Lance, year 3, wasn't even on the team. And I say this all the time, and I believe it more every day after seeing these situations. Getting drafted to a good team is great in theory. Patrick Mahomes, it worked because he kicked ass and dominated. If Patrick Mahomes had been awful and had been worse than Alex Smith, everyone would have been fired. It would have been a problem. So going to a bad team and a coach that everyone makes fun of, you can fly under the radar a little bit. But when you are Drake May and you get higher Vrabel, and everyone just goes, well, they're going to be a playoff team. At least, they're going to be very competitive. And if you just suck and aren't any good, and let's face it, if you watch that game against the Raiders, that team looked like a carbon copy of Gerard Mayo's team. Awful. The Bears last night looked like the same team that Matt Eberflus coached until he was fired. And then Thomas Brown started coaching. It was the same thing. So I just think the loyalty aspect of these new coaches, even with these super famous high picks, doesn't mean shit anymore. And one thing that happened a long time ago, when I first got in the NFL, the lockout happened my second year. And when that thing happened, it changed the power of rookie contracts. Because forever, if you're like 25, you don't even remember this. But when I was 25, these rookies used to hold out because the amount of money they were negotiating for was like more money than everyone in the league. Ndamukong Suh, Matt Stafford, Jamarcus Russell, Calvin Johnson. These guys were getting, if you were a top couple, first pick, second overall pick, third overall pick, you were making 30, 40, $50 million on your initial contract in guaranteed money. It was stupid. And this is 20 years ago. Right now, like I think the top pick makes $35 million. It's gone up because the revenue's gone up. But I'm talking in '06, you had to give a guy $47 million or $50 million. I remember Matt Stafford immediately became one of the highest paid players in the league. And those days are done. So it's actually neutralized the power of your rookie that their leash with the team isn't as big because you're not paying them as much. Why can teams pivot when a free agent isn't that good? Because for most free agents, they're not getting that much guaranteed money. Even Saquon Barkley, part of the reason how he had to give him a raise this offseason, he didn't have to, but he did because it was like his contract was kind of a joke relative to the league. I mean, he had guards making dramatically more money than him on his own team. So the contracts and the flexibility that it gives teams, if you're not any good, and here's the other thing. Quarterback play, you just watch college football, they're just solid quarterbacks. Like, what the hell? I don't know if John Mateer, just doing a little couch scouting, it was fun to watch him the other night against Michigan. He is a electrifying college player. He's got a good arm. He's a good athlete. And if he keeps playing like this, clearly Oklahoma's going to win games. He will be in the Heisman mix, and he will be discussed as a top 15, 20 pick. But is that an NFL player? I don't know. But there are enough guys like him year in, year out now that you just start watching around college football. You're like Nussmeier, Sellers, Mateer. You start going through. It's like, well, this guy's not good enough. We'll find one of those guys. And there's enough examples in recent memory of like, where the 49ers get their guy? Oh, 7th round. Where's the Cowboys 10-year starter? Oh, they got him in the 4th. Kirk Cousins, $300 million. Where'd he go? Oh, 3rd or 4th round. Russell Wilson was a Hall of Famer until he wasn't. Where'd you find him? 3rd round. So we say this all the time about these quarterbacks. Just because you draft a guy high doesn't mean anything. And just because you get a guy in the mid-rounds, turns out he could be your starting quarterback. So I just think we got to be very careful about thinking these guys are on scholarship because those days are long gone.
A wingman never leaves your side. They've got your six, come what may. Folds of Honor proudly provides the same unwavering support for families of American heroes. A Folds of Honor wingman donates $13 a month, which becomes life-changing scholarships for the spouses, sons, and daughters of fallen or disabled U.S. service members and first responders. Join their ranks today as a wingman. More than 3,000 scholarships have been made possible by wingman donors, preserving legacies and opening doors for the next generation. Your $13 monthly gift is profoundly symbolic. 13 represents the number of times a flag is folded before given to grieving families of American heroes. Each fold a symbol of sacrifice, of honor, of remembrance. Let's lock arms around these families and turn the symbol into something more. Education, opportunity, and hope. Become a wingman today at foldsofhonor.org. And speaking about a guy who's definitely not on scholarship, a couple years ago, the 49ers drafted a kicker in the 3rd round. Now, this was a time because of the Trey Lance trade. They didn't have any first-round picks. So typically, the first picks that they had would be at the end of the 2nd round because they had been winning. So they weren't picking till like the late 50s. So for the first night and even a long way into the second night, the 49ers didn't have a draft pick.
And they had a roster that would be reminiscent now of the Ravens, of the Vikings. If I draft a guy in the second or third round, it is going to be very difficult for that guy to start on my team. Hell, to make the team. He's only making the team because of his draft slot. There is no guarantee that he's going to actually earn that spot based on training camp and on the field. But that's kind of the way the league works. I've believed when you're in a situation like that, and you can be, I guess, a little greedy, that if you take a kicker or a punter at the end of the third round, taking a guy in the first couple rounds is insane. But you start getting to the third round, there's that thing called compensatory picks. And the 49ers were getting a ton of them because they had a bunch of dudes like Robert Saleh, Mike McDaniel's half black, these guys getting jobs and them getting extra picks at the end of the third round. So they had like several picks at the end of the third round, and they used it on a kicker. And this kicker, Jim Harbaugh used to say when he coached him at Michigan, death, taxes, and Moody's. It's guaranteed. Moody was that automatic. And I'll never forget my first year in Philadelphia, David Akers was the kicker. And he had a fantastic career. And that year it got a little weird. He missed some kicks, I think specifically in the playoffs, and Andy and Howie let him walk. And he went on to the 49ers the next year and he made the Pro Bowl. And he was probably 35, 36 at the time. Well, the Eagles didn't have a kicker because Akers walked. So what do? We drafted a kicker in the fourth round. I don't even remember the guy's name. He was a star, like all-American, all Big 12 kicker from Nebraska. All the guy did in college was make kicks. So it's like, draft him in the fourth round. And I'll never forget because at practice with Bobby April, our special teams coordinator, whose son, Bobby April Jr., I think now is the defensive coordinator for Stanford. Love that family. Great people. I used to help him with special team stuff, whether it be at practice or during the week charting shit. It was a shitty job, but it was fun. Bobby was cool. And I remember I was doing times, I was charting stuff, and I would kind of have to stand by Bobby and kind of by Coach Reed, who would stand right behind the kicking unit during that period of practice. And usually during that period of practice, if you have, a normal kicker, right, let alone a good kicker, most people aren't paying attention, right? During training camp, people are dicking around. Your starting units are on the side drinking Gatorade water, bullshitting. Hell, even when I was a scout or when I was at Fresno State, you just bullshit on the side. It doesn't. They make some kicks, and you just move on to normal part of practice. But when you have a new kicker, especially drafted a guy, like everyone's kind of watching him. And I remember him missing some kicks and it getting weird fast. And the one thing with kicking, unlike these other positions, confidence is a huge, huge element of it. And kicking, unlike playing defensive tackle or wide receiver, it's not really that physical, right? It becomes much more mental. It's like being a baseball player, being a golfer. You're spending the majority of your time thinking. And once you lose it, I think it's kind of gone. Because not only do you start questioning yourself, I think there's a natural insecurity where you start thinking that other people are questioning you. Because it's not like you're lifting the same weights as these guys. Practice is the same for you. You kind of live a different life. Though, if you're a third round pick, you're probably making $1 million. It's a great life. But the moment you start missing kicks in general, unless you are such a high level player, have a bunch of equity like Justin Tucker, but even toward the end with Justin Tucker, before all the news broke, it was like, God, he might just be old and done. Remember the last couple of years of Adam Vinatieri when he was old. But he got a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because, this guy's a Hall of Famer, right? This guy's a Hall of Famer. But often when a kicker has no equity and he starts missing kicks, you go, he's done. Because the difference of him, once he starts missing, and 10 guys on the street does not exist. Yet, if your right tackle has a bad game, you can't just cut your right tackle and find some dude who's at home that played in the NFL the last couple of years and replace him with that. The gap's too big. But with kicking and punting, kicking even more than punting, I think it's pretty easy to replace the kicker. And I believe that it's like, what the hell? If your team's good enough, take a guy in the third round, at the end of the third round. It's like pick 99. Who cares? That was dumb. And that's a complete waste to pick. And I believe that under no circumstances, probably until like the seventh round, should you take a special teams player. Because I Googled it, where was David Akers drafted? Oh, he was an undrafted free agent. Where was Justin Tucker drafted? Oh, yeah, he was an undrafted free agent. Most of these guys are undrafted free agents. So wasting a pick on something that is so out of your control because these guys' mental stability, just as quickly as it goes, it's like Paul Azinger said, the famous golfer, that confidence is a powerful thing. When you got it, you never think you're going to lose it. And when it's gone, you never think it's going back. And anyone that's played golf can relate to that. You can be like, God, I just had two birdies in a row. I feel like Tiger Woods. And then the next hole, you can blast one out of bounds. And all of a sudden, like, I don't even know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to swing a golf club. And I do believe with kickers, like with quarterbacks, look at J.J. McCarthy. Threw one of the worst passes he's probably thrown in his entire life, that pick six. It doesn't get any worse than that. What did he do? Shook it off, threw a couple more passes, and he was good. You just kind of battle through it. Like if you're a basketball player, I went 0 for 10. What's Steph Curry? Just keep shooting, keep firing, get to the rim, just keep going. Like it's like I haven't got a pressure all day. Well, just keep rushing. You've been using the bull rush. Try an inside counter. Try a speed rush. Mix it up. Just keep going. Keep playing hard. Good things will happen. Mental sports, golf, baseball, kicking, like trying hard doesn't work. It's actually the opposite. But that means you got to like take off and pull back the reins and think even more. And that's where you get a problem. So the 49ers cut their kicker. I think what it brings into light, under no circumstance can you take a kicker high anymore. It's just bad business because I would say nothing translates less than, oh, this guy was an All-American at a top 10 program. It doesn't mean shit. Honestly, it means nothing because you can get him and he immediately can suck. And I don't give the 49ers any credit. They should have done this last year. They should have done this in training camp. They needed him to miss a 27-yard kick against Seattle, which easily and probably should have cost them the game. They got very, very lucky to win that game, and Jake Moody tried to lose it for him. And listen, most coaches, and I was texting with someone the other day, I think defensive coaches actually have more respect for kickers because, like, in a perfect world, they want to play in lower scoring games. In a lower scoring game, the kicker has a huge impact on the game, right? Like, look at John Harbaugh and Justin Tucker. Look at Jim Harbaugh, who's an offensive guy, but technically feels like a defensive guy. A lot of these defensive coach, Mike Tomlin now with Boswell, like they value the kicker highly. Kyle Shanahan can't stand the kicker. He thinks if he could vote, if they ever had in a league meeting, like you can just get rid of field goals, he would vote to get rid of them. And listen, I do understand if you value offense or defense, thinking like, how is this a part of the game? It's like Ben Hogan in golf famously thought like putting shouldn't exist, right? He's like, you hit the fairway, you hit a great shot from 200 yards, and then a three putt. It's like, well, yeah, it is part of the game. Like kicking's part of the game. And when you have a bad kicker, and most teams don't have Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, so you're just going to, like the 49ers are going to play in a ton of close games. You had to cut this guy. And he got like way more shots, just like most people get more shots. Caleb Williams, if Caleb Williams was Brock Purdy and, seventh round pick that got an opportunity to start and played bad, he would not play anymore. But you get more opportunities when you're drafted high. You just do. Because of the money people invest in you, because people view that you have better traits. And Jake Moody is a great example. If Jake Moody had been an undrafted free agent from Michigan that had made the 49ers and missed all these kicks and been objectively not a very good player, he would have been cut 12 months ago. They wouldn't even have thought twice. They would have thrown him in the trash as they do with a ton of players on the team. That's part of the NFL. Guys get cut and transitioned in and out all the time. But there are certain players, and every team has this, maybe like a second-round pick, maybe a first-round pick who's not that good, who probably should be cut, but it's like, we're just not going to do it yet. So they finally cut him, and I'd argue it's a year too late, but better late than never after week one, which could have been a disaster. And I just don't think there's a team in the league. I do think, whenever a team's going through a spell, the Eagles had this happen, the 49ers have had this happen. I'm sure there are other teams. The Lions had this happen last year, where we try to figure out, like, why are there so many injuries? It's like, I don't know, some guys, sometimes you just go through a stretch where guys are breaking legs, pulling hamstrings, and hurting shoulders. But at least in football, if you go to training camp or in a preseason game or a regular season game, when you see a guy injured, you're like, hey, George Kittle just pulled his hamstring. Like it happened on him running a go route down the seam. Not ideal. Obviously, it's kind of a disaster, but everyone understands it. He was running, pulled his hamstring. I don't think there's any team that I ever remember seeing more guys get injured that like play the game, have success in the game. You see, like in the locker room highlights after the game, everyone's high-fiving, breaking down the team. And then on Monday or Tuesday, it'll be like, yeah, a little update here. Brock Purdy, we're adding him to the injury report. He's got a fucked up toe and a bum shoulder. You're like, what? What'd you say? The 49ers have guys who finish games, look completely fine, and then come Monday or Tuesday are injured. So they lead the league. They literally had, last night in the Vikings game, the linebacker who pulled his hammy had to wait to get into the tent because the center was in there. The 49ers tent is so big, it fit Trent Williams and George Kittle at the same time. They have a large tent because they know that multiple players might be in the tent at the same time. The Vikings just have a normal tent. It's like there's only room for one player. I would imagine most teams that's the case. Not the 49ers. It's like, God, you what size lot do you live on? Oh, I live on an acre. That's like the equivalent of the 49ers. Like, oh, we got the extra large tent. So it's just, I can't even, I don't even know what to say. Because at this point in time, you just expect, I don't even care if the game ends and you haven't heard anything. Just know come Monday or Tuesday, more injuries will happen.